Welcome to the Man Up God's Way podcast, a show that dives into the real, raw, and relevant issues for men in their faith, life, and community. Now, your host, Jody Burkeen.
Man Up God's Way podcast. We call it Man Up this evening. It is March 14th, and really excited about today's guest, as I am ever. I'm glad to have him here, and we'll introduce him here in just a minute. But my name is Jody Burkeen. I'm your host and the founder of Man Up God's Way. It's a men's ministry that was birthed out of a desire to see men do Christianity instead of being lazy, complacent, and disobedient to God's word. And early on in my Christianity, man, I was just looking. I was hungry, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do, and I really didn't have any men step up to help me out. And so God led me to one man. He happened to be the pastor of the church, the busiest man in the whole church, and he started leading me and discipling me and led me to a place to where I fell in love with the Word of God, and that's how Man Up started. And so I'm excited that you guys could join us. If you have an opportunity, please share this podcast and this video podcast as it is live on Facebook and YouTube as well. Share it with your friends. We are starting to trend all over the podcast world, and God is doing a mighty work here. So I want to introduce my host this evening. Ben, how you doing, brother? You got Mr. Oh, hold on, I got you muted.
Yep.
Sorry about that.
Yep, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah,
Another
glad you're
Monday
here.
night. Couldn't wait.
I'm glad you're here, Ben. And Ben has been my host ever since we started. This is our 11th podcast this season, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm not as excited today about today's guest as I have been in the past because he's handsomer and in better shape and younger and got more hair and just everything more than I've got. So.
But we can give him a view of what it's going to be like in the future.
That's right.
We can just make his life suck right now.
Hey.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just going to suck from here on out.
That's right.
But no, we're glad to be here. Rusty, how you doing in the back?
Doing great.
Always got our production crew in the back. We got Rusty on the chat. So if you have something to say on Facebook or YouTube or anywhere, man, he's got you squared away. If you have any questions, please get on the chats. And if you have a question for our guest, make sure you get on the chats, and Rusty will help you out. He'll also post links and topics that we talk about. So make sure you get on there and follow us there. Fergoza, we also have Fergoza back there. How you doing, brother?
What it do?
Hey, man, so you got a new song coming out, correct?
Yeah, man.
Okay, so Samuel Fergoza, new song.
Because if they look up Samuel Fergoza,
Okay, just look up
Fergoza music.
He's trying to market. He's going to end up getting rid of his first name. It's just going to be Fergoza.
It's like Seal. I saw what he did with it, and I liked it, so I'm going that
When are you
direction.
going to go to just the symbol like Prince did?
Well, I got to wait till the people know exactly where to find me, and then I got to
Then you
switch it
switch
up.
Then you're
it
going to
all
switch it all up
Okay.
again. All right.
So your new song called Drunk.
Drunk, yeah.
And you got a launch party coming up. I'm excited
March
about that.
27th.
March
27th.
27th, and I think I'll be there. So
Thanks,
I'm
man.
looking forward
I just
to that.
fixed it so there's drinking tickets and there's non-drinking tickets. Obviously.
Oh yeah, exactly. Great song to
For
have
all
while you drink. Yeah,
denominations.
yeah, exactly. So glad I'll be praying for that, man. That's awesome. It's a
Thank you.
great song. And just so you know, it's not about getting drunk. It's
No.
about what it does to you. So it's a really really good song.
Yeah,
And
when you think Fergoza, think like Adam Levine.
Mm-hmm.
That's who I instantly think of.
Okay.
The Maroon 5 lead singer, Adam Levine. That's exactly who he sounds like.
He does, doesn't he?
But his songs, just especially if you're a Christian, they've got a little bit deeper meaning.
yeah, it's good.
So it's good stuff.
I appreciate
I
the
like
love,
his song "Waking Up." So there's a plug for another song. My favorite song that he did at the conference was "Waking Up." I still listen to it. I've got like 3 of his songs I bought on.
You're going to be
Apple.
happy, dude. We're shooting a music video for that
Please.
this weekend.
That's
Great.
good.
That'd be
I'd like
awesome.
to get a copy of that. I love that song.
That is awesome. Well, that's our production crews in the back. You won't be able to see them, but you will be able to hear them. But if you download it tomorrow, you'll be able to hear all of us and not see any of us on podcasts. Make sure you subscribe to any of the podcast platforms. We're on all of them, basically. And you can get our weekly uploads. And man, we're praying about doing even another day, or I'm personally going to try to do another one by myself, and maybe some biblical teachings and stuff like that. So be praying for that. Really looking forward to it. One last plug is our merch, manupmerch.com. You can go and pick up my books, pick up some coffee, pick up some mugs. That's how we pay for this podcast. And again, it's at manupmerch.com.
You have to tell them about the Apple podcast.
Oh, yeah, the Apple podcast. Okay, so, hey, Fregosa, this light's not on right there.
Got you.
It's missing my pretty face here. Apple Podcast, we just broke the top 100 podcasts on Apple platforms. So we're really excited about that. And that's huge. It's going to be big time for us, and God is just doing a mighty work. What's crazy is it's nothing that we're doing. Like I'm not doing ads. We're not doing, paid posts or anything like that. It's just reaching out to the masses. So, with that being said, we've got coming up, we've got our special guest today, Jonathan Lutz, who is a personal trainer, a Christian man, and we'll be talking to him in just a second. March 21st, it looks like it's just going to be me and Ben. We're going to have, I think I'm going to work out some stuff.
Sweet.
So I think we may have a theological debate next week, and
that should be fun.
Get to see how smart he really is, and we're gonna keep it in context.
Yeah,
no conjecture.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good.
But some spiritualism.
So yeah. Okay. There you go. And then March 28th, we've got Dr. Jared Posey. I'm excited about his sharing his testimony. He is one of my disciples, and I've just watched him grow, and excited about what he's going to be able to share, and just to hear his testimony would be really, really cool.
He's a great chiropractor, too.
Yeah, and he's a good chiropractor. Yeah.
I just texted him a picture of where it says March 28th, Dr. Jared Posey, and I said, I can't wait. So
yeah, it's going to be good. And so, man, I'm really excited. So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce our guest today, Jonathan Lutz from Nashville. I always call it Nash Vegas. I always thought I'd end up living there, but he's from Nashville, Tennessee. And Jonathan, how you doing, brother?
Doing great. Excited to get to talk to y'all tonight.
Man, I'm glad you're here. And man, you reached out to me a few months ago on Facebook, and I think I sent you back some questions about how to help a fat kid like me lose some weight and get back in shape. I'm getting to an age now where my metabolism sucks, and I used to be able to drop 10 pounds and think about it. Now I'm struggling just to get a couple of pounds off, and so maybe hope to get some good insight from you tonight. So why don't you start off and tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you grew up, how you came to know the Lord, and then take us all the way up to when you started your online training and coaching programs, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Yeah. So grew up, honestly, in a great Christian household. My parents actually were missionaries in Haiti for years. Grew up, my dad was a pastor growing up, and until I was a young child, and honestly grew up in that environment. Was great for me. Like a lot of Christians growing up in the South, you are aware of church, and you go to church every Sunday. It's kind of just a thing you do. Not always connected as you should be with God, especially from a younger age. But yeah, I grew up in a great household, though. My parents, some of the most godly people I know. My mom, she's a saint, and she's one of the most important people in my life that I look up to from a spiritual standpoint and from just a standpoint of just being a good person. But yeah, was awesome to grow up in that environment. So from there, I grew up playing sports. Sports were my second aspect of my life. It was God and sports. Definitely was known in the town I grew up in as the kid. Me and my brother were the two guys on the sports team that weren't the kind of guys to go out and party. We weren't the kind of guys to go out and do that kind of stuff. Not from a critical standpoint from us, just from me and my brother were close. We were best friends, and we had similar mindsets from a standpoint of we didn't want to put ourselves in those situations. And we knew that is where I transitioned into my health and fitness journey. So when I was a junior in football, I wasn't good enough to play either one. I was going to have to dedicate myself to, I got to go all in and do what I can. I want to play football. I want to play college football. So from that, I decided I'm just going to do whatever any other high schoolers not willing to do. I'm just going to do it. So I started researching nutrition. I started working out like crazy, and I fell in love with it. It was something that I could not get enough of and still can't get enough of. It's been years now, and I couldn't tell you the last time that I went a day without educating myself on something from a fitness and health standpoint, nutrition, whatever it may be. But yeah, so as a junior, I started to get into the health and fitness aspect and really started to study it for myself. I didn't have any trainers training me. So I taught myself everything that I could to reach that goal of playing college football. And honestly, the biggest thing I got out of that was the discipline that I built through it. And it was something that I noticed, and we can talk about this too. I noticed not only a growth in my discipline in my sports, but in every aspect of my life. So spiritual and everything. So that's one of the biggest things that I like to really get across to people about health and fitness is it's not just about the physical body, but it's about more.
Yeah. So kind of go back. There's a couple things I want to touch base on. Number one, Haiti. How long were you in Haiti?
I was not personally in Haiti.
Okay.
My parents were in. They had both my older sisters. They're 6 and 8 years older than me, or 6 and 7 years older than me. They were in Haiti for 3 years, I believe, and then they came back over after my dad was actually in a motorcycle wreck over there, and obviously the medical situation over there is not very good. So
we have a Man Up God's Way outpost in Haiti. And I've been 3 times, and Ben went with me once, and it's a place we haven't been able to go obviously since COVID, and then we've got our liaison coming to the States May 1st, so we're really excited about coming back and him coming to the States, and then I'll probably head over again this summer. But it's one of the places that is near and dear to my heart, just because I've been there, a few times, and I've seen 2 things. I've seen poverty. Okay, there's no doubt massive poverty. But the second thing that I saw was just the love of God for those who believed in Jesus Christ. Like, I've never witnessed that in the United States. Like a pure love, unadulterated. They don't care what anybody thinks. They're up at 4 o'clock in the morning. We're talking teenagers up at 4 o'clock in the morning before school.
No lights,
going to the church, singing and dancing, and then they go to school, and then and just like people would give to us Cokes, $1 Coke, that was most of their year's wages. Like, it just blew me away. And so I love that place.
You know what's interesting about what he just said, even though it's a bad thing about his dad getting hurt in a motorcycle wreck. If you remember when we went over to the good side of Haiti and went to that spa or whatever it was, that girl that was sitting behind us that I struck up a conversation with because I knew she was American, the reason she was all scratched up is because she got thrown off a motorcycle. Well, that's exactly right.
They're crazy there. They drive like maniacs.
That's right.
Heck yeah. So that's awesome. When you said that, I mean, that's one of my favorite places. I really felt the first time that I went, I was like, man, I'm taking God with me, and man, me and God are going to do some mighty stuff over there. And I get over there, and he's already over there. He's working.
I've never been actually, and that's one thing I really want to do in the coming years. And my family, we always talk about going, especially my parents. They want to go back. I mean, obviously they've been back multiple times since, but I've personally never been, and definitely want to experience that from all the stories I've heard. And like you said, it's definitely God's working over there.
It's amazing. And the other thing that you were talking about is discipline. And to be honest, that's really how Man Up started. I learned early on that it took discipline in order to be a Christian. And it was something that I was looking around the church, and I realized people aren't disciplined about it. They're not disciplined about reading their Bible. They're not disciplined about repenting. They're not disciplined about prayer. They're not disciplined about trying to love your wife like Christ loved the church. They're not disciplined of training their children in the way that they should go. Like, that really blew me away. And early on, I know exactly what you're talking about, because, again, this was 10 years ago. You know, I was in the best shape of my life. And spiritually speaking, I had this great, this moment from 2010 to 2015 where I grew spiritually, physically, mentally, closer to my wife, closer to my kids than I ever have in my walk with God. And then we started a church in 2015, and that took away, I shouldn't say it took away, it was all of a sudden I became the guy that's, you know, preparing and planning and not necessarily spending as much time in my devotion and my spiritual walk. And, you know, for the last 6 or 7 years, it's been really tough just trying to get back to that discipline. I'm disciplined in a different way now. I'm disciplined in, you know, pastoring a church and creating sermons and, you know, making sure that I have content to be able to give to our church. But that personal devotion kind of went to the wayside, and so did my physical devotion. And my eating got out of whack, and I'm really excited that we're talking tonight, because it's one of those things that makes me want to get back. Ben and I started this Biggest Losers deal, you know, January 1st, just trying to get to a place we both are feeling, you know, kind of yucky, and Ben's doing a really good job. You lost how many pounds?
So I've lost 43 pounds. I'm 218. I was 261. So I've lost 43 altogether and 27 on the contest.
And he needed to lose the weight, just so you know.
I'm 5'8" and a quarter. I'm getting my quarter inch. 261 pounds. So yeah, I wasn't like everybody always said. You don't look like that. You weigh that much because I'm built like a fire hydrant. Yeah. But I had to do something, and you know my goal is 180
I never knew you
pounds.
were 260.
261. It's the heaviest I've ever been.
Fat kid.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know. Guess who's the biggest loser right now?
Exactly.
Build the man up.
I was like, I went the opposite way. I was like at 207. I'm like at 215 now. Yeah. So
Jonathan, real quick. So I texted Jody not too long ago, and I had gone to. I don't do a cheat day. I do one cheat meal a week. And so I had gone to a place here and eaten a sandwich or whatever, but I texted Jody the next morning and I said, there is nothing in the world that mirrors the way sin works in our life than the way that we eat. You have two bad days. The next thing you know, 3 weeks later, you weigh 16 pounds more, and you're eating at Arby's and McDonald's every day. So what you said about discipline, that's what the Holy Spirit is working with me on with my eating. You know, it's like, yeah, you can do that, but you're going to regret it tomorrow. And I'm the type of person, I eat 3,000 calories today. I weigh 2 pounds more tomorrow.
Right, that's the way I am.
So it affects me right away. Yeah. But anyway, comment on that. So I've heard you say in the past, either on the Facebook page or in the information Jody sent me, that you know the discipline and the working out and the health, you relate it to your Christian walk. So kind of explain what God has shown you about that.
Yeah, of course, and definitely, it's funny you talk about the path that can lead down just doing one day. I actually had a client reach out to me today, always staying in contact with my online clients, and he hadn't stayed in contact for a few days. It's been about 3 days. He messaged me. He's like, man, I had a few bad days, and the first thing I said to him is, don't let it continue, because when we can identify that yes, we can identify that we're not, I don't want to say messing up, but we're not on the path that we know that we're have planned out to follow, and just don't let it occur, keep occurring, and have that awareness to be able to stop it now before we fall into that routine and the habitual cycle of kind of going down that path. But yeah, even more so with the aspect of health kind of tying into the spiritual side of things. I think an important thing to realize, I know for me, when I first got into this journey and what I do with a lot of my online clients is a lot of people's inner their issues they have within their mind and their body issues that they struggle with. It comes from a place of, a lot of the times it is self-hate, and a lot of the times it's not being fully I'm not exactly sure how I want to put this, but they're not always looking from a standpoint that's not worldly. So they're looking more from this external physical standpoint. Yes, we want to be healthy so we can look better. It makes us feel better when we look better. But yeah, we also have to realize that when we eat better, we feel better. We want to do more. We want to help more people. And not only that, when we're talking about discipline, it's so important to realize that when we are disciplined in one thing, that's just going to carry on. It's going to just keep stacking on to different areas of our life. And I know for me, a big struggle, especially when I was in college and I was doing so much with college football, I was so disciplined in that. And a big struggle was making sure that I'm disciplined in my readings, in my Bible, getting in, journaling, making sure that I'm staying connected in that. And the discipline you build in one area 100% carries over to other areas. And then the big thing is just building habits into our discipline is where we're going to become this machine from a standpoint of just being able to continue to do these things, and not just the habit of like, I'm just going to do it just to do it. It's a habit, but get into a habit and a routine of doing it and making it a practice where we're really present in it and not just going through the motions.
That's really good. That's good. I used to have a drill sergeant said, if you look good, you do good. If you do good, you feel good.
Yeah.
And he was talking about everything from spit shining your boots to having your BDUs pressed, even your PT uniform, it had to be spit shined as well.
Another thing the Lord has impressed on me in this process, and I started to get healthy. I didn't like the way I was feeling. Listen, me being good looking, those days are over, regardless of how skinny I am. So for me anymore, it's not a vanity thing how I look, and I think that's what really clicked. I'm like, if I had one less genome, I'd be Shrek. But my point is, my point is,
I was like just picturing green, Ben.
And just so you know, self-deprecation is not humility, man. That's not humility. But anyway, what God's impressed upon me, Jonathan, is to not what I was always caught up in the end instead of enjoying the process. So I don't weigh myself every day, because I know some days I'm going to hold a little bit more water, especially the days that I eat the best. The next day, I'm not weighing myself.
Right.
But now I'm focused on the process and not the goal of 175, 180 pounds.
Like you said earlier, it's literally like sin. The issue, you can't get rid of a sin until you deal with the issue. And it's a hard issue.
That's right.
And it's the same thing with food. It's a hard issue. You and I were talking about that. Like, I want, and I feel like God is impressed on me that I've got to deal with it, in a better way than I have been. And I'm 5'11", and I'm at 218 right now. And back in the day when I was teaching, when I was doing 20, 25 conferences a year, and I was teaching discipline. I was staying disciplined, and you have to be disciplined. You have to look disciplined in order to get that message across. You can't. It's so hard for me to listen to somebody teaching something where I can tell that they're not really living it out. And, I've just gotten in a place now where I'm not near as disciplined as I used to be, and it stinks,
For the record, you didn't have to say you were 5'11". You could have just said 218. Everybody would have said, hey, Jody and Ben are the same way. Oh, but Jody's 5'11", so he must be thinner. I get you. I see where you're coming from.
No,
Hey,
I'm not thinner.
I'm 6 foot, so I've got an inch on you.
Yeah, it's the exact same. We're still too heavy for both of us.
Jonathan, did you play college football? Did you reach
I
that
did.
goal?
I did actually. So I didn't go anywhere big. I wasn't like I said, I wasn't good enough to play if I wasn't going to put my all into it. So I went to an NAIA school in Kentucky called Lindsey Wilson College. So I was blessed to be able to go there, and had a head coach that was also really influential in the fact that he was a strong Christian as well, and made that a big part of the program. And I was lucky to be able to even lead devotions not every single week, but many times before game days, and being able to do that and experience that and see how it was really eye-opening for me to see the parallel of a lukewarm Christian versus a Christian who's really bought in. And I know for me, I'm from a small town, and that was eye-opening to me to be able to go and see that, and you could really see that difference, and also to meet people who weren't lukewarm and they were really all in, and really helped me grow as well.
That's awesome.
Sorry, went on a tangent there, but
yeah, no, that's great.
That's good. That's a good answer.
We've got a man in our. I was going to call him a kid, but he's a man now in our church that plays guard for Liberty on the football team, Liberty University.
Okay, awesome.
So,
yeah, that's a good school.
Yeah, he's definitely a man. Holy cow, he won't fit through that door over there. Dude's massive.
Most definitely.
Yeah, so Jonathan, you played football, you got out of college, and then is that when you started the coaching, the fitness coaching?
Yeah, so I got out, and ultimately when I was in college, I was playing football, and I loved football, but I was like I said, I fell in love with the health and fitness aspect, and I was honestly during football season, I was focusing. I would be in football practice. I played quarterback, and I had stuff, all kinds. I mean, so much stuff we went through every week. But in the back of my head all the time was what am I gonna go back and learn? What am I gonna go back and read when I get back to my dorm? So I was always thinking about that kind of stuff. And as soon as I got out of college, I started doing personal training. I was blessed to get hired on at a place in a studio gym that I train in. And then ultimately my goal, I knew what it was. I wanted to start my own business. So I started working in that gym. And then during that time, I started my own online coaching business, which is what I run now, the online nutrition coaching and then fitness coaching as well.
And that's Transcendent? Is that the name of the company, Transcendent?
Yeah, Transcend Performance, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Transcend Performance and Nutrition.
Transcend, not Transcendent.
Yeah, Transcend Performance and Nutrition. And actually, we had a question that says, it kind of pertains to the things we've been saying, but do you have like any different sayings or even life verses, quotes, things that keep your mindset healthy? Like to kind of keep a healthy mindset and to keep pushing forward on those days when you don't feel like going or doing things. Mm-hmm. So a viewer just asked that.
Yeah, I was talking to a client the other day, and she mentioned this statement, and really resonated with me. And it's something that she didn't know it, but it was something that I actually live by, and it's purpose over preference. And she was talking about it. She was listening to Tim Tebow actually on a podcast, or she was reading his book is what she was doing. And she was talking about how she's in a point in her life. She knows she has to get her health right, and she's choosing purpose over preference. And I was telling her that's not just a health thing. That's a all around health. That's spiritual health, emotional, everything. I mean, our actions, we always need to look at it from a grand scheme of things of what's our purpose in this life. And I know for me, that always is in the back of my head, and knowing that ultimately my actions are not for me. They're for God. I'm not put on this earth to serve myself. So my preference, it may matter in instances, but ultimately it comes down to one, and that's God's his purpose. So
you say that goes really good with the scripture in Luke 6 that says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, with all your strength and mind." I think a lot of people forget about the strength part in there. That it mentions all four of those areas.
Exactly.
So,
I think of Philippians 3:14.
That's another one too.
I press towards the mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. Pressing takes effort. Right, it's not comfortable.
I do that every night when I get off the couch.
That's when you get off the couch.
When I get off the couch.
get out of the lazy boy.
Yeah. There's no hope for us, Jonathan. there's no hope.
Yeah.
There's no hope.
We're no, there is hope. That's why.
Yes,
I mean, we're trying, dude, and it's really cool. Like to see God, start working in not only our lives, but if we hadn't started this podcast, we wouldn't be talking to you. And who knows,
That's right.
after you give me 6 months of free training, how good I'll look then,
Yeah.
Jonathan, so let's talk about real quick. I listened to, I never watched the show The Biggest Loser, but I saw an interview one time with that Bob guy on there, and he said it's 80% diet. He said, when I used to think that I could work out people and just no matter what it was, I could work the calories or the fat off of them. But he said it takes 45 minutes to of a brisk walk to get rid of one blueberry muffin. He said, eat the blueberries. So what in your experience, how's the correlation between diet and workout? What would you suggest to people?
Yeah, I don't know that I would put a percentage on it. It's one of those things where I think a lot of the time we get into this idea of generalizing health and seeing it from a lens of one size fits all, and it's just simply not. But when we're getting down to the fundamentals of health and just being healthy, our diet is something we eat multiple times a day. We likely only work out one time a day, if one time a day. So, we have so many chances throughout the day.
One time a year, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So we have so many chances, though, throughout the day to choose what we're going to eat versus an action we're going to take from a physical standpoint. So, yeah, definitely the diet is extremely important. And you're not going to outwork a bad diet, and especially as you get, unless you are just genetically blessed and you have the metabolism you can just eat whatever. The normal person is not going to be able to be in that situation.
Right.
So, yeah, in a general sense, that's a good thing to look towards. But for me and my clients, we always want to establish goals and guidelines for the way we're going to go about our dietary stuff, but also the way we set up our day. So that way we're not just sitting around and not getting in our movement, because a lot of people underestimate the importance of just movement in general. Walking is extremely underrated. Fidgeting, even like just moving my hands around here, I'm burning calories. If people didn't know that, you burn calories every time you move. But yeah, definitely the diet is going to carry over and make up a large majority of that. From a composition and a health standpoint, it's going to be really important.
So I was going to say that means playing with my Rubik's Cube at my desk. That helps during the day.
Hey, man, you just got to get moving a little
Big
bit.
Mac, it doesn't.
Well, not eating after eating Big Mac.
I love the walking. So walking really helps me. If I can get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning and get 2 to 4 miles in before work, it gives me more energy. I look at my thing I've burned. I'm already 500, 600 calories to the good. This, that, and the other. And I'm one of those body types that I have to keep my carbs at less than 50 grams. Unless I'm if I was working out, I would probably eat more, but I am a low carb, low sugar body type. So if I cut the carbs and I cut a lot of the sugar out, it peels off of me. If I start eating carbs and sugar, it goes on faster than it comes off.
Right. Yeah,
or at least that's what I think anyway. I'm not an expert, but that's what I feel like my body responds to the intermittent fasting, keeping my carbs lower and keeping my sugar lower.
Yeah, that's what I found, though. What I could do when I was 18 compared to what I can do now, just eating, and meant like when I was in the military, we were eating, 4,000 calories, and I lost 30 pounds in the military.
Yeah.
And
It's important.
There's a difference when you're running 10-mile road marches and carrying a 70-pound rucksack and, 5,000 push-ups on a day, compared to what I do now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was about to say too, is it's important to not just look at where you were in the past from the metabolic standpoint and kind of disregard the other thing. It's a lot of, I get that a lot from people is say my metabolism's not where it used to be. And my next question is, well, how's your movement compared to how it used to be? Because that's number one. If you're not moving like, yeah, exactly. If we're looking from a standpoint of what our metabolism is made of. It consists of just the calories our body burns just living, and then our movement. Also, when we digest food, we burn calories, but our movement is a large portion of that. And a lot of people forget that, and they think that it's just this metabolism is just this encompassing thing, and it's just one thing, but it's really it's made up of different subsections. So it's important to remember that.
That's good to know. Yeah, because I mean, up until I would say I hit 45, so I'm 53 now. That's almost 10 years ago. And I could drop 10 pounds just thinking about it. And I hit 45, and it just slowly. I was probably around 208, 209 back then, and now it just gradually keeps coming up, and now I can't lose it, and I can tell that my metabolism. I actually move more now than I did back then. I had a desk job. Now I do construction on the side, and I can just tell that the older I get, the harder it is to burn those calories and get rid of that fat, that's going around my gut now. It's ticking me off. So, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's interesting to look at studies and see the actual scientific research that goes behind our metabolism decreasing over time. And it would, honestly, it's going to hurt to hear this for a lot of people, but when we look at from the studies, especially the most researched ones, it's not that grand of a loss in
big of a drop.
Metabolism from a standpoint of, so we have our total daily energy expenditure, which is our total calories we burn. And then we just have our BMR, which is our basal metabolic rate, which is just what our body burns if we're just laying on a bed. And that number does not actually decrease as much as people think it does over time. It's more of the movement. And then a lot of the times we are getting less activity, just not from a standpoint of making sure we're going to work out, but also just like throughout the day, we sit a lot more. Nowadays, we're on our phones, we're on our laptops doing work. People work from home.
Right.
There's a lot less movement than people realize.
What are some suggestions you have? Like, I work in IT, on a help desk, and so I'm sitting there. Thankfully, I have to have a standing desk, so they, every probably couple hours, I usually move it up and stand up for 10 minutes or so while I'm working. But besides that, what are some things that you suggest to people who are in more of those capacities where they have they're working and not able to move around as much during the day?
Yeah. Obviously, I have many clients like that, and a standing desk is the number one thing I always ask my clients is, do we have an opportunity to do that? Because when you look at studies, the difference in caloric burn over a day at a 9-to-5 job from just simply standing and holding up your body weight is going to be it's some range from 200 to 500 calories difference in calorie burn from simply just holding your body weight up standing. And then when you can add on top of that, some people have treadmills under their walking desk where you can walk and work as well. And then, you can obviously get a ton of steps in it and burn calories that way. But from just like a practical standpoint where you don't have a standing desk, I ask my clients, what is the likelihood that you can get up every hour and walk for 5 minutes to start? Or maybe it's 2 minutes to start. Start with something. And if over time, maybe we can get up and we can walk around the office, get up, go get a drink of water. It takes a few minutes for us to walk around. That's some extra steps. And like I said, people just undervalue this, the importance of our calories that we burn just moving around on a daily basis. And a step counter is something that is really important. Not that steps are the only thing that matter, but if we want to have something that we can identify and that we can look at over a period of time and say, yeah, we're doing something daily that we know we can see a number and we're hitting it every single day, it's good to have a step counter and try to hit. If you're working a job where you're legitimately sitting down all day, 6,000 is minimum, but 10,000 ultimately would be like really good if you could get to 10,000 steps a day, which is tough to get if you're working a 9-to-5 job. But that would be my number one recommendation is just try to get up as much as you can and get up, walk around a bit every hour or so. If you can make it a 10-minute walk, that would be great. But start with something that's practical and something you can do consistently.
So what does a 10,000 step day do for you? Like
I was saying, our body burns calories through different ways. That's our total daily. energy expenditures, the total calories our body burns. And then we have our basal metabolic rate, which is the number one thing of how many calories our body burns. That's just us living. And then we have our exercise activity thermogenesis, which is how many calories we burn through exercise. And then what we call NEAT is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is just moving. Like I was saying, fidgeting, walking around. That's going to make up a large majority of our day in comparison to going to work out for 40 minutes to an hour. We're going to have more opportunities to get up and walk around throughout the day and move around. And that's just going to help us to burn more calories. And it's important to note out too, that when we're looking from a composition standpoint and from a fat loss, fat gain standpoint, every bit of literature shows that it comes down to caloric intake, whether we are going to gain weight or we're going to lose weight. So that's why it's important for us to pay attention to how many calories we're actively burning through our movement. And that's what a step count is going to help us do, is just achieve that greater number of non-exercise activity thermogenesis, some more calories burned.
So are you calorie counting as well? Like your food intake? Or is that based on the individual?
It is. So the individual calories that you should intake is based off of you personally. Like I was saying, there's no need or reason to generalize health. Everybody's an individual and they have their specific needs.
Right.
But it's important to understand that calorie counting is not the only way to be in a calorie deficit, which is going to allow us to have fat loss. So you don't have to calorie count to be in a calorie deficit, but it's going to be easier because, like I was saying, it's important for us to have things that we can look at and identify and say, we're hitting this, we know we're on target, versus kind of shooting in the dark with these other diets that people get on, keto, paleo, whatever it is. Not saying there's anything wrong with those. Some people need them, some people don't, but it's hard to identify your progress, where you started from, what we're going to change over time, and where your end point is. Because people forget to identify that stuff, and it's hard to make progress and ultimately sustain progress if we're not having some sort of marker and identifier of what we need to do and what we have done to get the results we want.
That's good. So in my mind, and I'm not that I'm struggling, but my question is online coaching. Okay, but in my mind, I'm thinking, man, you need to see me. Like, you need to, say, okay, this is what I want to focus on. You got that gut around you. I want you to get rid of that. And, I know what to do with that. If we're standing, face to face and showing me what to do and how to do all that kind of stuff, take me through what your normal routine would be for online coaching that, gives you the ability to make the right call for whatever my body type or my eating or, whatever I want to do. How does that work?
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing important to note is that for in-person trainers, I continue to do that. I train in person, but you're only seeing people, if they can afford it, the most probably like 3 days a week, because most people aren't going to come in 5 days a week and see you. So it's important to note that, like, the people that you're going to see in person, you're not seeing them as much as that's going to make such a difference that they're going to be able to, like, look at you and be able to make any changes. And ultimately what they're seeing is not going to be able to make changes from a dietary standpoint. The in-person stuff is more important to make sure that we're accomplishing the goals of our workouts. We're doing workouts correctly. We're getting the right stimulus we're sending to our body. So with the online coaching, I get this question really often. People are like, what do you actually do? What am I paying for? And number one, I always tell them, you're paying for communication, connection, and you're paying for me to actually be able to connect with you and know what you need as a person. Because like I said, the generalization of nutrition it's not going to get it done in the grand scheme of things. So with my clients, we start every single time with a phone call, talking about our goals, really getting to connect. I mean, some of these calls last an hour and 30 minutes, really getting down to not only your goals now, but what have you done in the past? What are our kind of some of these cognitive biases we have, some of these things that are holding us back from progressing. And then just being able to, from a standpoint of talking about tracking a few minutes ago, I make my clients track because it makes it easier on me to know where they're at from a metabolic standpoint. I can know how many calories their body's burning based off what they're eating, how their body's responding to it. And then also be connection. Most of it honestly comes down to connection and communication between the coach and the client.
Right.
And I'll do the in-person.
Personal. I always think of that.
Exactly.
I always think of that 600-pound life. Have you ever seen that? Oh my God. Dry as fish turds in a sandstorm. Like, he just literally will just tell them exactly what they're doing wrong, and why they're not losing weight. And so they have to go to they have to start a diet in order to lose enough weight to have gastric bypass surgery. So there's this process that they have to go through. And every time you were just talking about, losing weight and counting calories, and every time that he'll put them on this program, they'll come back down like 30 days later, and, they need to lose like 100 pounds. Like, because once they quit eating, they can lose weight really quickly. And the people will get up there and get on the scale, and it'll say, instead of 600, it'll be like 650. And they'll be like, I don't know what I did wrong. And the doctor's always like, you ate too much. Yeah. Like, you didn't do anything I told you to, and you ate too much.
I got to tell you, I never got past drier than fish turds in a sandstorm. Where did you come up with this stuff? Like, you went to school, Jonathan, in Kentucky. This is where this man is from. This is what we deal with on a daily basis. I never got past that.
Think about how dry that is.
I kept thinking, fish turds in a sandstorm. I probably missed out on some good advice there. But so, hey, Jonathan, and I'm only asking you this because this is something that I've been focused on. Is I've been doing so I've been watching Dr. Berg on YouTube. So I'm not doing keto because I know he's a keto pusher, but I've been trying to focus on shortening my window every day where my insulin spikes. I'm not diabetic or anything. But I've just and I've not educated on any of this stuff, but it's something that I don't know when I first started hearing about it. That the things like carbs and sugar, and every time you eat, you spike insulin, which ends up causing fat on your liver, which ends up going to fat in your midsection, and this, that, and the other. And if you I want you to tell me I'm a guy that I want you to tell me what I need to hear. I want you to tell me not what I need to hear, but what I want to know. What I need to know, right? So what is your opinion of all that? About how insulin affects that stuff?
Yeah. So with the thing around insulin and what the guy you mentioned you were following, a lot of guys from the keto standpoint, not that they're not being genuine in what they're doing, but they're trying to sell what they're doing as well. So a lot of the times what you'll see is this misrepresentation of the science and what they're showing. And ultimately, when we look at the literature and the studies behind it, the benefits you are getting from weight loss, or the benefits you are getting from the diet that you're on, generally are not coming from dropping carbs or dropping whatever your diet that you're doing is telling you to do. It's generally coming from a decrease in body fat, and that decrease in body fat and decrease in other things within the body, the just more proficient our body gets at processing stuff when we lose weight. That's the benefits we're going to get. Not that we need to discard the importance of insulin, because it's a super important thing. But like I said, this generalization that everybody needs to be on keto or low carb it's not true in the sense that most people generally actually don't do better on low carb, and insulin can be spiked by more than just carbs. People don't realize you eat protein, your insulin is going to be spiked as well. It's not just from carbs. The big thing to point out with the insulin and the carb debate is that ultimately it comes down to how much of it you're eating. So like I mentioned earlier, the caloric intake, always, nobody can debate this. Even people who talk about insulin and how that plays a role in our body, none of them are going to debate that calories matter and that they're the number one player in whether we lose body fat or gain it. With that being said, there are instances where if our body's not in the right position, we will hold on to body fat more if we're not processing carbs correctly. And that's where some people do have benefits. If you're pre-diabetic, you might not need to have a ton of carbs. If you're struggling with insulin resistance, you may not need to. So like I said, it's really individualized to the person. But ultimately, it's going to come down to managing our caloric intake and making sure we're getting the right amount of nutrients within our diet. It's not always cut and dry. Carbs are bad or carbs are great for you. It's individualized. But ultimately, I would urge anybody listening to this and anybody who's wanting to look at a diet to, number one, look at something they can do that is sustainable. Because if you can't do it forever, then there's no point in starting because you're just going to end up back where you were. I mean, studies show that 90% of people actually gain back more weight than they lose when they get onto a diet, which I say that with quotations around it because the diet is essentially just what we eat every day.
So you really have to have the mindset of a life choice. Like it has to be a lifestyle change, and it's got to be something that's sustainable. Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
and in all honesty, it's about balance. And the thing I try to get across with my clients, and I personally don't love the term healthy, just because and I'm really big on the way we talk to ourselves and the way we term things and the way we talk, because the way we say things is a lot of the times the way we're thinking about them. So healthy to me is relative to the person. So yes, there's things that may be healthier for us from a micronutrient density standpoint, but we have to look at it from a standpoint of what is healthy for me in the moment, mentally, physically, and in other areas as well. But really breaking down a diet and figuring out what can I stick to and what can I do for the long term is number one in my eyes.
I can definitely understand that. My daughter's a type 1 diabetic. So, what's healthy and what's, beneficial for her, obviously not the same for everybody else.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's why I have a rule. So if I'm listening to Dr. Berg and I get on the intermittent fasting, which I plan on doing, I love it. It helps me spiritually too. Right. It works for me.
Yeah.
I'm not telling anybody do it. You listen to this man, you don't listen to me. But my point is, I don't buy any of his supplements. I'm not buying anything because I know what I believe that what he's teaching is good. I agree with Jonathan. My friend Steve, who you've met, he's built a lot like me. He went on a diet, he started a new way of eating, lost 60 pounds, and he eats 6 times a day and just walks. Right. But he's eating nuts, he's eating salads, but if I eat 6 times a day, I want to eat 9 times a day. It's just the way that
That's
I am.
The way I am too. Yeah.
I don't necessarily like breakfast. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell anybody not to eat breakfast. I don't like breakfast. I've never eaten breakfast my whole life. So it's easy for me to get to that noon to 2 o'clock in the day, but the other day I ate, I came home at night and I had done really good and I was feeling good. And I'm like, you know what? There's a couple of Reese's peanut butter cups in the thing. And then one of the stepkids, or we had some tortilla chip, one of the grandkids. My wife watches our grandkids 5 days a week. Had a little bag of Doritos on the counter, and so I got some salsa out and I ate the Doritos because I was feeling. I'm like, whatever. The next day, I can fast until 2 o'clock in my sleep. Yeah, I was ravaged at 9:30 a.m.
10 o'clock. Yeah,
I had to eat at 11. Yeah. Which is before my window starts, and I came home and I told my wife, it's just like sin. You make one bad choice, and the next thing you know, you're paying for it. It's just I'm getting better about catching it faster, right? And doing and repenting or going the other way, right?
Well, and that's actually good segue into one of the questions we had. Is, what's your view on when those kinds of things happen? And I guess gluttony would be the kind of right word there. And then contrasting that with the spiritual side of staying disciplined and healthy. What's your view on that?
Definitely. Yeah. So one thing I wanted to point out too with the fasting is Always, whenever this conversation comes up with fasting, I like to point out that fasting is just a tool for us to allow ourselves to stick to a diet. It's not anything that's going to allow you. It's not going to be this night and day changer in your health.
Right.
You ultimately, you're going to have to fast for like 24 to 48 hours to actually see fasting benefits. Yeah. So unless you're doing that on a daily basis, you're not going to see a ton of benefits. But what was the exact question in regards to gluttony with that?
They basically, the question is, what's your view of gluttony on the spiritual side of staying disciplined and healthy?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny. I actually had that written down in one of my in my notes here. I was writing down some stuff beforehand, and it's so common for us to view, I don't want to say other forms of sin that people, addiction and these other things that we really look down on. And a lot of people just, I don't want to exactly say they're not looking inward, but they like to judge other people from a standpoint of, oh, this person's addicted to this thing or they're addicted to this thing. But a lot of the times we don't identify that we're addicted to these foods, and gluttony is such a common issue, and nowadays more than ever with the abundance of food we have in America.
Somebody hit the off button. He's meddling.
Yeah,
now.
we're about to walk out of here.
He's meddling.
No, I think he's dead on.
You're dead on.
I didn't mean to stop you,
and Jonathan, listen, I know you're walking a fine line here of being nice, but like I said earlier, don't tell us what we want to hear. Tell us what we need to know, brother. Yeah. Tell these people what they need to know, because it's gluttony. You're right. Why do we compartmentalize sin? Mm-hmm. Like, well, that sin's really bad, but this, and it's like I always tell people, the definition of sin is to know right and do wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If I walk by the dishes and the Holy Spirit gives me a thought to do them for my wife, and I'm like, nah, she'll do them. In my eyes, that's sin. Yes, I knew what was right, and I did wrong. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I'm giving myself away. I hope my wife isn't listening to this. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, exactly.
And so,
honestly,
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I have struggled in my past with like not necessarily binge eating, but wanting to. At one point, like I was saying, you got to do something that's sustainable. At one point, my story, I was not doing something that was sustainable, and it was leading me to these cheat meals where I would just overindulge on food. And ultimately, as I grew in my faith, I just started to read the word and look at stuff and notice that me doing that was not just something that was bad for my physical body, because gluttony in itself is not physically, it is not healthy, but spiritually, and from a standpoint of we're looking at the Bible and what it says, identifying those things and that we do. And especially I think it's just so normalized in today's culture that we go out to eat and we go to a buffet and we eat 6 plates or whatever it is. And it's just normalized and we just don't think anything of it. And it's just so overlooked. And honestly, I mean, you see it even in the church. I mean, nowadays, this might sound harsh, but there's a lot of pastors who are overweight. And oftentimes I'll be sitting listen to an overweight pastor preach. And I had actually one of my youth pastors when I was growing up was extremely overweight. He actually just passed away of cancer a month ago. And I think about him, and it's hard to really, like, for me, I don't know your thoughts on this, but to draw the line, and what's the difference between us overindulging and having an addiction to food and us having an addiction to something else and us not being able to control that. And I think that's something, honestly, I would love to hear y'all's thought on that. But that's something I've struggled with, and I think about that often.
Yeah, you're dead on, dude. I mean, that's an issue with, like Ben was saying, the problem is we want to compartmentalize sin instead of, it's no different than, you look at the drunk or the drug addict walking into the church, but the one guy who is so prideful that he can't even see his nose despite his face, there's no different than the guy walking in with a heroin needle in his arm. Like, that's that's what we end up doing. It's the same thing with gluttony. And I think we, in our society, especially in the United States, I notice this when I go to Haiti and when I come back to the United States, when it's such a different, matter of fact, I was just showing somebody the other day the pictures that I had of Haiti, and I showed a picture of my breakfast that I got at a little bitty restaurant that was there, and it was a plate of eggs. It had a little mango and some watermelon and pasta, like just pasta. That was it. Like, and I'm talking portions that were, really, really small. And I thought, if this were in the United States, I would have one plate of eggs, a whole plate of fruit, and then I wouldn't even have pasta. I'd have something different. And gluttony is one of those things. I bet if you typed gluttony on YouTube just to see how many pastors actually spoke about it, it'd probably be very few, because after church we're going to have a potluck, and then let's all go out to dinner, with a small group, and let's go get ice cream with the small group. And it's this, you go to a fast food place, and most people could live off the Happy Meal, so to speak, but yet we want to supersize everything with a Big Mac and a large fry and a large Coke, and the Happy Meal that was half the price and just as, and twice as small would do that as well. And you're right. And I think that's where Ben and I are struggling right now. And I know Rusty is also involved with us too, that it's a heart issue. It's like when I think of food more than I actually think of God, that's an issue. When, like you said, I'm thinking 3 times a day at least, assuming I'm not walking by something that's sitting out there for me to open, I'm thinking of when I'm going to eat and where I'm going to eat and how much I'm going to eat. And that's a major heart issue.
If I can, if I can be so bold to give myself another plug on this song, that's what it's about. That's what Drunk's all about. It's not about alcohol per se. It's about social media over intake. It's about food over intake. It's about lust over intake. It's about these things that God has made for us that are good in the fashion in which they were made. The tough part about gluttony is it's something you can see. Mm-hmm. And we've done ourselves a real disservice here in America with this, this culture around, well, hold on, we got to be kind. But, it's not absence of grace. I, like you, struggle when I see a pastor who's overweight preaching. The enemy comes in and says, you can't listen to this guy. He can't even say no. Right. But at the same time, I struggle with other things that are hidden, and that's the luxury of having, a lust problem or an alcohol problem or some other problem. No one can see it. Gluttony we can see, and that makes it a tough one. What was it
that you, Jonathan, Cody Bobe? Have you heard it?
Not.
Okay, I'll introduce you to him one of these days.
So
what was it he said?
We got this guy that preached at our conferences, and he's got a ministry called SoulCon, and he's ripped. And he's a good-looking dude like you, but he used to wear a man bun and stuff. He's just a good-looking dude. He comes into a conference in our church, and he's, Jody's the stupid one that brought this guy in, and he's preaching to us, and he says, I get men that come up to me all the time and say, I'm ready to go out and fight a spiritual war and kick the devil's butt, and you can't even put a cupcake down. And I wanted to jump up on stage and punch him in the face, but he would have mauled me, bro. So first of all, real quick, my wife texted me and said she heard, so she was listening. When I said something about the dishes, I knew she would text me. She heard it. I looked up and it said Stacy 2 texts, and the autocorrect got her the first time, so she wanted to make sure she meant HEARD and not HERD. Right. And so, secondly,
that's funny.
For me, it's about self-control, and I think that goes along with discipline. Yes. So the lesson I'm learning is, I'm a mature Christian now. I know what to do and what not to do. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mouth when I don't need to. Can I get some self-control and not, feel good and be like, you know what? Mm-hmm. Today I'm going to eat the bun with the double cheeseburger. I'll go to Wendy's if I didn't prepare, and preparation. But if I didn't prepare, my go-to is there's a Wendy's up the street. I go get the Dave's double with cheese. nothing on it, take the bun off, eat the 2 patties with the cheese. And that gets me by because I didn't bring a lunch or whatever. So, but getting through the drive-through without getting the double cheeseburger with the fries and the Coke, sometimes it's about self-control. Like, I know that's not doing anything good for me. Plus, I'm never going to be a guy that works out a lot. I'm not. I'm going to walk. I'm thinking about buying some kettlebells or some dumbbells. But past that, I don't want to.
So it's going to have to be a lifestyle change.
It's going to have to be diet and some movement. Diet and movement.
I got a great story about a fast food restaurant. This was it's probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and I was down in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was on a business trip, and I'd started a diet. Man, I was killing it. I was doing great.
Weren't you vegan at the time?
Yeah, I was. Well, so I was going vegan. Yeah. I was vegan completely. And man, I was getting back in shape. I was losing weight really quick, and it was longer than that because Chick-fil-A's weren't really around here. And they were down south quite a bit. And so I pull up to this Chick-fil-A, and in my head, I'm going grilled chicken sandwich, grilled chicken sandwich, grilled chicken sandwich. And the lady's like, "Well, can I help you?" And I was like, "I'll take a fried chicken sandwich, a large fry, and a milkshake, please."
And a 16-piece nugget.
and a sweet tea. And I just fell off the wagon. Like, it was one of those moments. Yeah, it is. And that's where, with sin, and this, I'm gonna preach here for a second. It's justification.
Mm-hmm.
We justify, like I justify eating, okay? You've seen me eat sushi. Saturday night, I went and had sushi, and it's baby orca. But I'm thinking, okay, Sunday, I don't eat that much. I'm busy all day, and, I'll justify, eating 42 pounds of sushi. And then I justify it. Like, I literally, in my mind, I'm thinking it's okay because I'm not going to eat till probably 3 or 4 o'clock Sunday afternoon, and I'll have a light meal and it won't be a big deal. And then Monday morning, I'll start, back at it. And, like literally, that's the way that I do. And it's the same thing with sin. I see this all the time with people saying, man, the Lord, and I told you guys, man, the Lord told me to start working on my weight, like working on my discipline, not necessarily, just getting disciplined again like I used to be, and all of that. And so I say all that to say is that all of our sin we can justify. We can always find a way that it's okay for us, and we can always find a way that nobody will find out. We can always find a way that it's not that big of a deal. And usually the way that I justify my sin is if I haven't been spanked by God. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, it wasn't, he didn't catch me. I didn't get that much trouble. Let me do a little bit here. Usually I can tell when I'm in trouble. God I get caught, or, my sermons don't come out as good, or there's a million ways that I can see where God gets me, and eating is the exact same way. So
Jonathan, you were going to say something a minute ago.
Jonathan.
I was going to say it's important to realize that self-control is a practice too. Just like with any sin, getting anything you're struggling with, it's intentional practice of not doing that thing and being able to control yourself in that situation when you're put into it. And it's never going to cease to exist. So
here's the crazy thing. You just said something a while ago. We have the power for what? Self-control. Mm-hmm. How do we have that?
The Holy Spirit.
Fruit of the Spirit.
Yeah.
It is a fruit of the Spirit to have self-control.
Yeah.
And that is with our fork. That's with our words. That's with our deeds. That's with our sin. Like, we have that power. And every time, I love what you said when we first started this. It's that not only does your physical, and it works both ways. If you have a spiritual discipline, a lot of times it's going to fall into a physical discipline. Or if you start a physical discipline, it's going to fall into your spiritual discipline. We quench the Holy Spirit so often with our sin and our justification that we no longer have that self-control.
Yeah.
And that's with everything. And we've got to learn to rely on the love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and faithfulness, and self-control. Like, that is key.
Well, I even think even in 1 Corinthians 9:27 it talks, but I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. So not disqualifying yourself,
right?
That's it.
By actually, having that self-control.
Right, exactly.
You know, yesterday I was talking to a friend at church right before I did announcements, and I talked about Galatians 6:1-4, which is about sharing and bearing burdens.
Mm-hmm.
But those first verses, literally, God knows how fragile we are. Because what does he say? He says, when you go to bear somebody's burden, be careful lest yourself be tempted. Now, what I always thought that meant was, listen.
That means you and I can't go out to dinner together?
No, he said, it's not sushi. He said, be careful. I always thought that verse meant, be careful how you judge somebody when they come to you. But what he's actually saying in there is, if you go to your buddy and he's in the bar, be careful when you go get him in the bar, lest you be tempted also, right?
Yeah.
So
which verse has that been?
It's Galatians 6:1-4.
Okay.
It's the sharing and bearing burdens verses.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things
That's
that
so true.
I think it's important to touch on, Jonathan, I already know, because I'm a ex-trainer, kinesiology. That's why I did my grad school.
Wrestler.
So I already know the answer to this question, but I think you should talk on it, because there's people who are listening to this and they're saying, well, you know, it's not so much gluttony that I'm struggling with. I'm just big boned. So, and
Cartman.
you know, everything.
Well, and that goes into a question that we had a lot earlier, but, you know, talking about the difference between like weight training with, you know, body weight versus even just resistance weights, or even, you know, like kettlebell or, you know, physical weights, is just kind of tie that all together.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I don't want to offend anybody here, but your bones aren't bigger than anybody else's. So
I knew that going into it. I appreciate you saying it.
I know that's so common. I still hear that with people, and I don't always just come out just straight out and just say that to them, because a lot of times it's hard to get through to people if you offend them right off the bat. So it's important to realize that there are different body types. Different people are bigger than others, but ultimately it comes down to our dietary habits and the things we're practicing. But from a standpoint of like training and looking at the differences in what we're doing, there's a lot of different things you can get into from a standpoint of, I mean, we have our endurance stuff, our long distance, we have our strength training that's more powerlifting, which is just lifting real strong. We have our bodybuilding style stuff, all that. Honestly, if we're just talking from a standpoint of just being healthy, you can forget all of it. Number one, we just want to move. And then we want, for me, in my belief, some people would disagree. It's number one, we just need to move. We need to keep our heart healthy by moving. And we do need to include some type of strength training, because with that, we get a lot of health benefits from a standpoint of building muscle, which improves our metabolism. We burn more calories when we have more muscle. We process carbs better when we are lifting weights. For us men, we improve our testosterone when we're lifting weights. That doesn't mean you have to do it 5 days a week. Maybe that's 1 day a week for you to start. Maybe that's 2 days a week, whatever it may be. There's so many benefits from it for me and all my clients, at least a minimum to start 1 day a week of a full body training, getting our that stimulus to our body that we're trying to build some muscle. We're promoting the processing of carbs. We're using those carbs through our training. And then just getting out and moving. And a big thing with people, and I hear this often, is I don't like doing that. I don't like strength training. I don't like doing cardio. And I mean, in all honesty, there's certain things in life you just have to do. You don't like them. And those are just some of the fundamentals you're just going to have to do if you want to be healthy over the long term. And you look at, it's crazy to see, but the number one indicator of health in old age is your grip strength. And that's going to come down to how much actual strength we have in our forearms and our hands. So that's the number one indicator of health at old age. And it's so important to identify that is something that everybody should be doing in some capacity.
Well, as a
you don't have to be out.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rusty.
No, I was just saying, as a person that works in IT and deals with, hand strength and stuff with the carpal tunnel and always moving a mouse around, that's one of the things that I've been noticing a lot, like just having a stress ball to actually, when I'm not using my mouse around, to move my hand around.
Well, think about an old person. Once they lose their knees and their ability to use their arms, they're done at that point in time.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be old people. There'll be old people I see that are all hunched over, and I'm not making. This isn't making fun of them, but I tell God, please, just kill me before I get there. Bring me home before that.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, a couple of things. Number one of the reasons I like Jonathan already so much is because Jonathan understands. I think that a lot of us are not doing this to be ripped, to be able to lift 500 pounds. He's talking about simple
just
things.
Being healthy.
He's talking about simple things like movement and stuff like that, which I like because it's encouraging to know, hey, listen, I'm going out tomorrow because I know my boss will let me expense it, and I'm getting a stand-up desk. I don't think he'll let me
get the treadmill.
Expense the treadmill, but I think I can get him to buy off on the stand-up desk after Rusty said something about that. And also, I just lost my train of thought.
You're talking about Jonathan understands.
Yeah, Jonathan understands that some of us are just doing it to get healthier, feel better, get some weight off of our knees and stuff like that. And I'm not gonna be doing the ropes and running 7 miles and this, that, and the other.
See, that's my problem. Like when I decide to lose weight, I want to go to SEAL school.
You were going 0 to 100 in 5 seconds.
I
don't want to start walking. I want to, I want to climb,
this
climb
is the
mountain.
easiest meal I've ever earned in my life. I mean, dude, it's so
That's
easy.
my problem. I want, I'll go join CrossFit.
Yeah.
I'm going to start CrossFit and I'm going to be
Yeah.
Well, the big thing is, I mean, in all honesty, it's so many people are like that, not always in the training sense, but people just want to jump into a diet, get the fastest results possible. But when we look at it from a physiological standpoint and also just from a long-term sustainability standpoint, you may have results in the immediate future, but in the long term, like I was saying earlier, I mean, studies show 90% of people who get on these fad diets will lose, or they will gain back more weight, not the same. They will gain back more weight than they lost.
I did it. In 2013, I did the HCG diet. Worst decision I ever made in my life. I went from 235 pounds to 178 pounds in about 6 months, maybe 5.5 months. And dude, I was killing it. And then I met Stacy, and I'm not saying that because it's Stacy's fault, but I met Stacy, started to get comfortable, fell in love, and went right back to all my old habits. And now I was 261 pounds. So he's exactly right. Yeah. It played out in my life over a 8-year period. I gained back everything plus 26 pounds. Yep. Because it was unsustainable. So that's why this time when I'm fasting, even though I've lowered my carbs a lot, I still am going to eat a baked potato. I'm going to make it to where I can live off of it the rest of my life and make it sustainable. Yeah. Right? And whatever that looks like.
Yeah, it's important too to realize that when we jump into whether it's going and exercising for multiple hours a day or whether that's jumping into a diet that's feeding us not very many calories at all. Our body God created us in a way that is incredible, and we literally just adapt to everything. And our metabolism slows down when we do that. And a lot of the times most of the times when I have people come to me, if they're not younger individuals, they'll come to me saying they're struggling with their metabolism. And I dig deep, like I was saying, getting connection, communication, and find out what have they done in the past, and come to find out that they did these diets, multiple diets that really slow down their metabolism, set them back from a standpoint of their body's not running like it should be. Right. And that's number one. What we have to address is we got to get your body running like it should be. And kind of to come back to your question, talking about the online coaching, that's one of the biggest things is being able to identify that to people. Set up a plan for them, a periodized plan, not just saying we're going to do this and I'll let you know in the future what we're going to do. No, actually having a legitimate periodized plan to get you on track so your body's where it should be to lose weight. Then once we lose that weight, we're going to be able to keep it off forever. And then also like talking about the strength training, being able to have a plan for those people and being able to, like you were saying, make it practical for them and not have them jumping in on something that they don't have to do or that's not necessary.
Right. So Jonathan, just real quick, so I'm 50. I'll be 51 in July. Jody's 53, a much older 53, except for the hairline.
I'm
so
44.
my question, Rusty's a young 44. So let me ask you a question. At a 50-year-old male, because this is something I don't do because I don't trust it. For whatever reason, I trust you. What supplements, meaning vitamins, do I need to be taking? Because I can tell you, I'm 50. I've never taken vitamins for more than a week my whole life, ever.
Yeah. So with vitamins, vitamins and supplements, ultimately, what we need to realize is those are just supplementary to what we're doing and what we're intaking from a dietary standpoint. But when we're looking at what I recommend for the majority of people, number one is some type of omega-3 fat, which normally is going to come from like a fish oil. That's my number one recommendation for something you can always take and be sure that you're getting benefits from it. Nowadays, they're showing all kinds of studies that it helps with fat loss, it helps with brain function. But in general, it's just good for us to have omega-3s more in our diet because we have a lot of omega-6 fats already in our diet. So we want to balance those out. And then we can look at stuff like vitamin C, vitamin D, supplementing with that. Most people nowadays don't get enough of that. So that's always something that I recommend for my clients. And then ultimately taking a multivitamin, a good one, not one that's just
one that you just pee out at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. So taking a good multivitamin and taking enough of it that you're actually getting some benefits from it is important. But like I was saying, those four things are ones I would recommend to most people or nearly everybody that I coach. But the other ones that I would recommend would be from an individual standpoint and would be based off of what people need to help them achieve their goals. But ultimately, it's going to come down to making sure we're getting in our nutrients through our food and what we actually need. Because if we're not doing that, then the supplements they're not going to do much from a health standpoint.
All right. So I've got, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Jonathan, and you go as far as you want, because what I don't want to happen is for you to sell your program here on it. If I were your new client today and I'm calling you up, and to be honest, I'm going to, so let's just consider this I'll be vulnerable as I can be here on the podcast so everybody can hear. So like if you and I were just talking, I called you, I said, Jonathan, I want to do the program. Where do we start? So what do we do? What do we do from here? What would you ask me? What information do you need to know? And how would we go about doing that? And just, again, I don't want to give all your secrets away because I do want people to call you and get you online.
Yeah.
And I'm not asking for anything free by any means, but just the opening process, like what would it be like?
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't give you away any secrets anyways. It's like I said, the plan I set up is not cookie cutter. I couldn't give it to you right here because it's specific to each person. I sit down for 30 minutes to an hour and look over all the details that I get down and make a plan from that. But originally when I hop on a call with somebody, number one, I always ask them, what are they struggling with initially? What is your biggest struggle right now? Let's identify that. And let me get some context about why you're struggling, because without that, I'm kind of sitting here in this blank space of not really knowing how I can serve you and help you if I don't know what you're struggling with in the first place.
So, and then, is that a question? You want me to answer that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Get it.
What's that?
I want you to.
Yeah, you want me to get that? So I struggle with food in general. I love food. When I do get disciplined, I'm very disciplined. Like I went vegan for almost 2 years and ate nothing but, if it had eyes or a mama, I didn't eat it. Like I literally had, and I did really well on that. My problem is when I'm not like that, man, I just like food. And I do construction, part-time Monday through Friday. So I'm pretty active. I'm carrying 2x4s and 2x10s and, packing concrete and different things, sheet metal, sheet rock and stuff like that. So I'm relatively active. But I like to eat. Like literally today for lunch, I was in my office most of the day. I didn't go to the job site because I'm in seminary as well. So I was doing some school. And all of a sudden, it was like what you were talking about. I felt hungry, and I thought, man, I have got to eat. And next door, we have this roast beef place next door to us, and I went over and got a roast beef sandwich, a large fry, and a freaking Coke. And that was for lunch. And I didn't think twice about it.
Something about you, too, is a meal with your family on the weekends. Like, that's like religion to you. You love that. Well, that always leads to a big meal.
A big meal, yeah. I like, my family and I. It's a movie and a meal. That's what we like to do. So that's my issue is that I love food and I want to be disciplined better at my portions, at my, the kind of food that I'm eating, and I'm not. That's my biggest problem.
Yeah. So the next question I would, just based off of that, the next question I would ask anybody who comes with that, because that's a pretty common thing is, even I love to eat, but the number one thing I would ask is the diets that you tried in the past, what do you think made you not be able to stick to those? And why do you think that ultimately you failed at doing that?
Well, I don't know if you've ever done vegan diet. It's not easy to do, especially as much as I was traveling at one time. And I did pretty good. I found a few restaurants, if I were traveling to Taco Bell had a couple of really good vegan meals. And they called them a Cantina Bowl. They don't have them anymore. And so I was able to do that. Well, I was at a conference. I was at a men's conference, and it was a fishing tournament. This was probably 2014. I'm literally in the middle of nowhere.
I love this story.
I'm literally in the middle of nowhere, and we're at a fishing tournament, and so we go out in the morning. I did okay for breakfast. I was able to eat some fruit and some oats, and just kind of make sure that I was doing okay. Come back for lunch. I had a decent lunch. They had a salad. Well, dinner that night they had fried catfish, hush puppies, pork steaks, baked potatoes, and nothing green in the world except the grass that I was walking on. And I fell off the wagon like a crack addict. Like, it'd been 2 years almost. I was vegan. I fell off, like literally did that. So it's sustainable for a while, and it's expensive.
Yep.
Like, it's really, really expensive to be a vegan. It's crazy that a tomato costs more than 4 boxes of mac and cheese. Literally.
Yeah.
You can buy 4-box mac and cheese, especially if you get off brand.
I was actually going to ask that. What's your suggestion to people, when they look at the pricing and stuff of, food and stuff? That was another question I was going to ask.
Yeah, that's good. So that's my, I really like that. And then, and the reason that I went vegan was not only because I was trying to lose weight, but I also get migraines. And I read somewhere or heard from somewhere that, red meat sometimes causes inflammation and migraines, and my migraines went away, like literally just went away. However, I've gotten them back since I've gone off that diet, but they're not near as bad as they used to be. So
yeah, definitely. So I think what I'm trying to get at through these conversations with people on the original call is let's identify the issues and identify the red flags of what you've done in the past and what you're struggling with. So just based off of that conversation, even talking about your family meals, your movie night, whatever it is, it seems like the big thing you struggle with is practicality and being able to follow it in all circumstances, no matter where you are. And then also just sustainability in the long term, which is normal for people.
That in my mirror. Every time I look in the mirror, I still see the 18-year-old Jody. It messes me up until I get on the flipping scale.
You know, I heard that how we thought of ourselves in 7th grade is how we think of ourselves the rest of our lives.
Is it? Yeah.
Like if you thought you were like this little bad dude in 7th grade,
I still think that, dude. Like I look in the mirror and I'm thinking, there's the military Jody's right there.
Yeah, so I just want to tell the guys out there, the reason I like what he's talking about is because it's all about who you are, what you're dealing with. He sees the heart issue, right? I'm not even going to say the verse, Proverbs 4:23. I'll leave it at that. It all comes back to your heart. That causes the issues of life. Why do I love food more than this yearning to be healthy and to honor God with my body? Why do I love gluttony more than I love God? Because he's the one that's trying to get me to do this.
Right.
And I'm telling him every day that I make a bad decision, I like my sin more than you today, or I love my sin more than you. I have to do this.
Right.
And we have been victims and self-righteous since the garden.
Yep.
Right? What did you do? She did it. He did it. It was the devil. We've been victims since the garden. So earlier when you were talking about self-righteousness and justification, we do that with everything in our lives.
That's good. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely something to identify that our body, when we take care of our body, that's a form of gratitude to God. I mean, obviously, I think we overlook the fact that God, he literally formed every single one of us.
Right.
Individually. And that, I think we take that for granted a lot of the times, especially when it comes to the things we intake within our bodies and the lack of physical activity, the just not taking care of ourselves in general, whether that's mental, emotional, whatever it is. I think a lot of times we overlook that standpoint of being grateful for what we have and the opportunities that God has given us. And that's one thing I post every single morning on my Instagram and Facebook story. Wake up grateful, count your blessings, and spread some love. And that's just some things that I have it as my screensaver on my phone, reminds me every single day. Those are things I live on, and every single one of those comes back to God and spread some love. Christ is love. So that clears that up. And then being grateful for what's God he's given us. And I think we overlook that aspect a lot of the times and being able to re-identify that. So we all know it, but re-identifying that.
I said, say that again for everybody so they can hear you. You said, wake up grateful, and then what?
Count your blessings, and then spread some love.
Awesome.
That's good. Every
single morning I post that on my Instagram story. Try to inspire someone. And honestly, for me, I post a lot of stuff that's a word for me. I repost a lot of stuff that pastors will say, and I'll put a word underneath something that went through my mind and trying to encourage somebody else. But a lot of times it's just a word for me. And I think that's something to always think about too, is you have the opportunity to impact others. And I know one thing you were talking about, your family, it's a thing to get together and be able to have that meal together. I know for me, it's awesome for me to see the impact I've had on my family. It's not only me, but I originally started, like I said, changing my diet. And from there, it's awesome to see my family start to take on some of those practices. Right. And you can be the person. It's important. I always remind people that you can be the person to create change and be able to help your family and others around you. So
boom, dude, you got no excuses now, dude. He just dropped some wisdom on you.
Oh man, he's killing me.
Clearly, when you're asking people questions, you're also using the discernment that the Holy Spirit is giving you, because like you're asking questions, but I can just tell in your facial expressions by what you're hearing me or what you're hearing Jody saying, you're looking at it at a deeper level, down to the heart, and you're trying to get to the crux of that. You know, it's in business, I'm an operations guy, so we do like 5 whys and we do lean processes and stuff like that. So you ask questions to get to the root cause, right? And it sounds like that's what you're doing with the questions that you're asking.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the times people don't realize it, but their eating habits and their lack of physical health is a result of things that they're just within their mind. I have a lot of clients who struggle, and they'll say negative things about themselves, or they'll have these ideas, these biases within their mind. And I don't I just don't tolerate that kind of stuff. I point it out every single time somebody messages it to me or says it to me, because like I was saying earlier, the way we talk and the way we speak to ourselves, the way we say things out loud, it matters, and people will overlook it. And when you can start to reintroduce the positive aspect and the gratitude and looking at it from a different standpoint and seeing the really just seeing God in it is really what it comes down to. You will grow so much and you'll start to overcome those beliefs that you have.
Yeah, Ben and I are like the guy that Paul talks about, taking a look in the mirror and then walking away and forget what your face looks like.
Yeah.
Because you and I, one week, it'll be like, we need to encourage each other, okay? We'll encourage each other. I'm praying for you. And then next 20 minutes later, it's like, hey, fatty, how come you eating that?
The minute I get a half a pound under you, I'm like, what's up, fatty? But me and you so what he just said, me and you are very self-deprecating.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we do, like earlier, my comment about Shrek. God convicted me. I didn't say nothing, but he's trying to get me, don't say things like that about yourself, right? You're wonderfully made. Yes, I want you to do this, and this, but you got to stop making jokes about yourself to be funny, because underlying it really does go back to I wouldn't call it self-hate, but it's self-loathing. Yeah. For me, I don't hate myself, but I don't like myself as much as I should.
You're masking.
That's
things.
exactly right.
You start masking. Yeah, I do the same thing a lot of times. When I know. And all people really, truly understand where they are with God, even when they don't think they do. If they get to the heart of the issue, they'll realize that this sin in their life is hindering them, whether it's gluttony or lust or pride or, worry, fear, doubt, whatever those things are. We know those truly deep in our heart. The Holy Spirit's convicting us. We just got to realize that we need to get those out of our lives. And a lot of times we do that by self-deprecating, which is not a good form of positivity, obviously, in your life. So.
Yeah, I mentioned it in passing earlier, but the Holy Spirit, Jonathan, convicted me one day, and he said, Ben Neely, self-deprecation is not humility, and I know the difference.
Right.
So don't try to be and act like you're all humble, because you're not. So we're going to work on true humility, and you're not going to work on humility just with your mouth service, right?
So the couple things real quick. Do you for an example, just for our listeners who may desire to use your services, do you have a price that you offer, or is it custom for everybody, or are you just trying to figure out where everybody is? And again, don't just don't say anything that you're not comfortable with. I didn't know if maybe you had a one size fits all pricing or anything like that.
Yeah, I do have pricing. Generally speaking, I like to get on a phone call with everybody and talk to them first and be able to get down and really be able to connect with them. Because a lot of the times when you set a price up out in the forefront, people kind of, it's just sitting in the back of their mind, and that's all they're thinking about. Yeah. And I don't want the price to be a barrier ever. I always try to work with people within reason, but ultimately, my belief is things of value are worth putting value into it. And then, and with the pricing stuff, I'm not super expensive, in all honesty. I'll just put that out there. I don't want to say my prices out loud, but I'm not super expensive compared to a lot of other coaches, but yeah, it's definitely something that I generally wait for on a phone call, just because it does.
Yeah, I totally get that.
One of the things that we used to say when we were personal training and talking about price is, people would always ask, why is it so expensive? I say, because you need it.
Yeah,
exactly. If you didn't need it, you wouldn't be talking to me. Well, I can't afford it. No, you can't afford not to, because your health is,
I'll give you a perfect example of that. A lot of our conferences that we do will have an opportunity for them to do a scholarship. We'll have people donate extra money and, come to a scholarship. Majority of the people who do not come are the people who got it free. They end up not showing up on a Friday or a Saturday because they got it free. The ones who paid showed up. So, you're going to get what you pay for, kind of deal. And I appreciate you that. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot there, because I didn't know if maybe it was like, here's a bronze, silver, and gold pricing or something like that.
If you think about it too, some of the stuff that you're going to be cutting out of your life when you start talking to a guy like Jonathan is going to pay for it. You're going to stop going to Starbucks and buying the iced coffee that, you know, is putting an instant 800 calories on your body at 5 in the morning. And you're going to stop spending money on fast food and this, that, and the other. So it's going to be
your medical bills
and your medical bills. And it's going to be a wash anyway. So especially, I believe him. I would bet that Jonathan is reasonably placed, because it sounds like to me, Jonathan's doing this because it's a calling on his life, and he wants to help people, not because he wants to get rich off of it. That may be a result of it one day, but I don't think that's the reason he's doing it.
But to be fair, I mean, it doesn't really matter what his price is. It is reasonable.
Exactly. If it's saving your, making you healthy, giving you a few years,
healthy, and you're paying for accountability.
The question I always ask people is what. Honestly, I don't even give them a price until I ask them this question. I'll say, what value do you place on your health? What value do you place on this? Because I want to know. And I will tell them, offend me. If you don't think it's worth whatever, lowball me. You're not going to offend me.
Right.
Because ultimately, that's what you place on your health. That's not a representation of me. That's what you're placing on your value of your health.
I like the fact too that he has the conversation first, because I'm sure you talk to people, Jonathan, and it's not a fit from one side or the other, or maybe both of you. It may just, after that first conversation, I don't know that you ever have, but I would assume after that first conversation, you've got a pretty good idea whether it's a fit for the both of you.
Right.
And they probably do too.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny you said that. I actually was a lady messaged me direct, like 2 minutes before I got on here. She was asking me what my prices were, and I just told her I'd like to get on a phone call first to, number one, hear your goals, and number two, see if we're a fit. Because if we're not a fit, there's no point in us doing this thing. So it's more than just me getting money and helping you and you achieving health. Like I said, it's way more than that. It's connection. It's growth in all areas of our life.
Yeah, you ever gone to buy a car and the salesman asks you what you're looking for, and you tell him, and you describe a Honda Civic, and he's trying to sell you a Pilot. I don't want that. You ask me what I want or what I'm going. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to try to walk me down a path that's a little bit different, because I don't know what I want as far as my health. But I mean, if I tell you don't ever want to be ripped, don't ever want to be a power lifter, but I like to walk and run, then build a plan around that from me. And then maybe as I see that work, you can talk me into doing kettlebells and dumbbells, and we get to there. But you know, this thing, like that, you can, with your body type, your weight, because I've somebody done, you can get discouraged really fast. You know what I'm saying? You can get discouraged really fast. And you know, I suspect a person that's good at this type of business that he's doing, this type of career, is got to be, you know, he's got to be very encouraging, especially at the beginning. Or he's going to scare you away.
Well, it's about building practical steps and something that works for you. Like I was saying, a lot of my clients, some of them I'll start them off with a more complex thing. Some of them I just simply have them start drinking more water, eating more protein, and then getting some more steps in. And then we'll just go from there and just start building small things, because not everybody can handle a lot at once. A lot of people aren't in the current situation where they need to be dealing with that extra stress. So like you were saying, it's important to be able to establish things that you can build on and then work up from there.
And I've got a quick question for you. If, you know, we're kind of talking about all of these things, and I know we've put your link a couple times in the chat, the Transcend Performance and Nutrition. Is that how people get hold of you, is just by calling the number or actually signing up for that form down on the bottom of it?
Yeah, so actually right now my website is being updated. So the website is not the best place to go.
Okay.
My Instagram and my Facebook is the best place to contact me. Get on there. I have within my bios on both of my Facebook and my Instagram, I have a Calendly link, and then you can set up a call on there, and whatever works for you, get on a call. But yeah, my Instagram and Facebook right now is the best place to reach me, with my website being updated.
And those are all Jonathan Lutz. They're all
okay. It's Jonathan, or actually it's Lutz Jonathan _ correct for your Instagram.
And I'm gonna spell
we'll spell them out. And we'll put them all in the chat as well.
Well, let's spell it out for the people who are just listening. So that's LUTZ Jonathan, JONATHAN
_.
So
and that's important. No H. No H after the O in Jonathan, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So, all right. So we got a few more minutes here, Jonathan. It's crazy that 2 hours went by that quick. So I've got a spiritual question to ask you. So
Favorite ones.
So you're in these gyms, and you're good looking. Are you single? Are you married?
Single.
Okay.
Why would you?
I've had an interesting.
Well, I'm just asking. Like, I mean, I couldn't imagine being, dude. I'm telling you. So, how do you stay? You know, I hope I don't throw you under the bus here, but how do you stay pure? How do you control your mind? How do you capture your thoughts in a gym with spandex, with women, with being single? Hopefully one day God will send you your spouse, whatever. How do you personally do that, and how would you encourage other men to be able to do that?
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually one of my men's group that I'm in. I was talking to some of the guys. We were actually all just talking last week about that kind of urge, the desire for us as men to have that mindset and deal with those struggles of the day to day that a lot of people wouldn't think about, but especially as a Christian man, it's even more. But I think number one is just asking and praying to God for that clarity of mind. Definitely, it's not. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm perfect by any means, and that I never struggle with anything like that, because that would be 100% a lie. But definitely being in constant prayer with God throughout the day. And I know for me, that's something that over the past year has changed my life, is just constantly being in communication with God. I don't have to literally be sitting there praying, but just thinking, God, help me to keep my eyes on you. Seek first your kingdom, not this kingdom. That's always something that's in the back of my mind. And so that would be my number one thing, would be advice would be, number one, pray about clarity of mind. And then be in constant prayer throughout the day, whether that's just talking to God minute by minute, thinking through things when you're getting frustrated, when you're driving, whatever it is, just being constant contact with God. And then from a standpoint of dealing with it practically, it's honestly just working on, just like I've been talking about through this whole time, building the habit of not doing those things, of not looking, keeping our eyes up, not looking, turning around and looking at some girl that just walked past you. Just building the habit and the discipline and the self-control, all these things we've been talking about, it just carries over to so many different areas. And
that's good.
And when we get this, obviously when God intercedes and gives us that clarity of mind, and then we have these habits and the self-discipline to keep ourselves from doing it, we're just much better off. And I know personally that's where I turn in that situation.
That's awesome, dude. So as we wrap up here, I want to thank you for, man, just getting on here and sharing your story and sharing your business and your heart. And I can tell that you're a pretty wise young man. And I think that's really cool that you're following God and following your heart in this fitness world. It's not an easy world. I know that. And but God's leading you that direction. And so I'm probably going to get on your calendar and get, a time with you to talk. I need you to promise me something, though. If you see Ben's number, make sure you block it, okay? Don't allow him to. Make sure you don't.
All right.
Listen, I won this contest before it started.
Don't take his phone.
Over.
Do not take his phone call, please. Yeah, Ben,
that's too funny.
I see a difference in Ben's eyes. Like he's got the eye of the tiger.
It was a heart issue.
Yeah, and his heart's changed, and he's looking good and looking great. And I'm starting to feel convicted on, because this is everything that I wrote my first book off of was based on the discipline of a godly man, and it went in not only in my spirit, where I've gone through the Bible probably 20 times in the last 15 years, and but it also went into my life physically. Like I was actually doing stuff and eating well and making sure that I looked good. Make sure when I did conferences that, when I start talking about discipline, I didn't have anybody in the audience thinking, well, I'm not going to listen to that fat fart.
Well, this isn't just a plug. This is dead serious. Your book, Pursuit of a Godly Life, literally addresses how we build on, we achieve this and we build up to, what is it? The verses, 1 Peter...
2 Peter chapter 1, or chapter 1, 5 through 12.
Right.
Yeah.
So we build, we start with, what was it? Is it love?
It's your faith and knowledge, and your knowledge, perseverance, and your perseverance,
right.
Godliness, and your godliness, brotherly kindness, and your brotherly kindness, love.
But the way you describe in the book is each is a building block to the next.
Right, exactly.
It's exactly what we're talking about with everything we've talked about tonight.
That's good.
And Jonathan, I'm glad you came on, man. I remember when you first got on the Man Up community page, and I just remember the name. I remembered you were a fitness guy, and when I saw your name on the guest list, I'm like, man, he went from just getting on the page a few years back to on the podcast. So I'm glad we have you, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man, it's awesome to see how God works stuff out like that. I know with me, I just ran across the page and saw some of the posts and the conversations that were going on in the group, and I just joined, and this comes out of it, which is, it's awesome to see, and God works, man. It's awesome.
That's awesome. Well, brother, thank you so much for joining us. Again, we'll have all the information to get a hold of you in our comments on the Facebook page, Facebook group, YouTube. So people will be able to get a hold of you. I pray that, man, if you're listening and you're struggling like me, give Jonathan a call. Give him an opportunity to maybe walk you through some processes that you need to get in your life and see if it sticks.
Yeah, I mean, we believe God put all this together, so we believe God brought Jonathan tonight. At least have that initial conversation with him and see where it goes from there.
I said I beat you both to it because I already signed up.
Oh, Jody signed up.
7:30. I was sitting here by my computer.
Rusty signed up already, bro.
Don't take Rusty's call either.
No, you can take Rusty's call. He's too skinny to win the contest. So Rusty maybe needs to lose 18 pounds, right?
It's about 25.
Yeah, maybe 25. So he can't win anyway. Go ahead.
Yeah. Ben's guys.
Yeah, definitely. Nobody hesitate to get on, and I would, even if it didn't work out, I would love to get to talk to as many people as I can. I love to talk to like-minded men, so I appreciate y'all letting me on here and talk with y'all.
All right, brother. Well, thank you so much, and have a great night, and God bless you, man. We'll be praying for you.
And y'all too.
All right.
Hey, y'all keep doing God's work with what you're doing.
Amen.
Thanks, my man. God bless.
Yep.
Bye.
You have a good one.
All right, guys. That was a great call.
Yeah.
What a good guy, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just wise for as young as he is, and got some great knowledge and some great understanding. That's really cool. So
I'm on a mission to be able to, at some point, be able to do in my career, because I'm probably always going to have to work, what I would love to do, or I'm not there. Like, I love my job. It's made me a good career, but I'm not doing. You're doing pastoring.
Right.
You love to do it. Jonathan is doing fitness.
Right.
He loves to do it. I don't know about Rusty. Rusty's doing IT. I don't know whether Rusty loves it or not. But I'm not doing what I want to love to do. And part of that's my own fault, because you spend money, you work yourself, that, or the other. And
think about how life goes, though. I mean, sometimes you're trying to survive.
Right.
And you get to a place where not too long ago, I did a series through Ecclesiastes, and sitting at the end of your life, looking back, you're going, man, look at all the stupid stuff I did. It's all vanity. The stuff I did. Why can't I go back, or why can't I start at this place where I love God and I love people and I love what his purpose in my life? Most of us, we start off going, okay, what's the world got for me? How can I do this, this, and this? And the next thing you know, you're 45, 50 years old going, I don't like what I do. And that's the way it was for me. I mean, until God called me to full-time ministry, I was miserable, just doing what I was doing. It took me 12 or almost 15 years to get to that place. after I gave my life to the Lord, and man, it's tough.
And you know, I am doing what I love to do at church and outreach and mission, but it's so maybe I'm being a little hard on it. You know, you're still doing construction even though you're a full-time pastor, so. You know, it is what it is, but I guess I want to do more of it.
Unfortunately, you still got to pay for stuff.
Yeah.
That's a problem there. So, well, guys, thank you so much for another awesome night. And, folks, join us next Monday at 8 o'clock. Ben and I will be here again along with Fregosa and Rusty. And we just thank you for following us. Be sure to share it, and we will see you guys next week. God bless.
You've been listening to the Man Up God's Way podcast. Visit us on Facebook, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and our website at manupgodsway.org.